What is up, party people? It's time for another episode of rhY'z Anti-Corporate Newz. Today is Monday, February 22nd. Starting off on Twitter today, Andrew Boston MD MS says, it's time for mass civil disobedience on masks. Biden's 100 days of mask wearing took all of less than a month to extend into basically wear a mask until 2022, despite plummeting C-19 infection, hospitalization, and mortality rates. It's almost as if these mask edicts have nothing to do with the virus or any kind of transmission. At Zero Hedge reports supposedly retired F-117 Nighthawk stealth jets spotted over Los Angeles. Yeah, the military lies about what kind of capabilities they have. I think if you look up the Project Silverbug PDF, this is a declassified document from the 1940s that shows that our government was working on flying saucers almost 100 years ago now. I mean, 1940 was a long time ago. It's very clear that in the late 1940s, when this blueprint was being developed, our government was researching how to build flying saucers. Now, do you think they didn't succeed in building a flying saucer and they haven't had flying saucers ever since? Or do you think they have had flying saucers ever since and all of the flying saucers that everybody's seeing are in fact top secret military industrial complex machines? I don't know. It's up to you. You decide. Governor Kristi Noem sends letters to members of Congress urging against canceling Mount Rushmore fireworks celebrations. Kristi Noem has been one of the only cool governors in the nation during this whole COVID lockdown thing. I'm not saying she's not a swamp thing. I think everybody at the top level of politics is a swamp thing, but maybe she's the least swampy. Representative Lauren Boebert, that's at Lauren Boebert, says the For the People Act should be called the For the Swamp Act. Yeah, you don't say. So once again, the migrant crisis on the border is escalating and we're going to be putting kids in cages. This time, the cages have AC and windows, so slightly upgraded cages. Great job. At Luke, We Are Change, that's Luke Rudkowski from We Are Change, says, when someone says they completely believe science but forget that the sugar and tobacco industry paid off scientists to lie. Yeah, as if that was the only time that the scientists have been paid off by giant corporations. Proving once again that the Biden regime is all friendly to the corporations and not friendly at all to we the people, the Biden regime is steering clear of endorsing the Amazon Union Drive because that would not be in the best interest of the corporations. It would be in the best interest of the people of this nation, which the Biden regime has no interest in supporting. Apparently, a New Zealand nun has broke the COVID restrictions to attend an exorcism at the Irish Parliament. Now, if we could just have an exorcism at the US Senate, oh, that's right, we would have no Senate anymore. Bill Gates, who is actively perpetrating a genocide on the entire human race right now, actively at this moment, is criticizing Twitter for the Trump lifetime ban. So I guess even genocidal fascists can be right once a day. Corporate media is still going full guns after Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's MT Green EE on Twitter. You should definitely follow her. She is a riot and one of the only people in government that I like at all. At Lisa Marie Bouthe says, I wonder how different things would be today if people like Dr. Ioannidis were given the same public platform that lockdowners were at the beginning of COVID. That is a truly great question. Imagine if people had been talking about herd immunity at the beginning rather than, oh my God, stay home. At SK Moorfield says, Dr. Scott Atlas said on Fox News, over 70% say they will wear a mask after the pandemic is over. We have a damaged American psyche, and it's due to these public health officials that are just really not saying the real data, probably because they don't want to admit they were so wrong. And if you go back and look at the tapes of Fauci and Bill Gates and the CDC and the World Health Organization, they were so wrong this time last year. They were so wrong. And the fact that nobody's talking about that shows how complicit the corporate media is with these genocidal maniacs who are so wrong. I think intentionally wrong. I see malice there. Maniacal psychopath and biggest divorce loser in all of human history, Jeff Bezos, says he might be interested in buying the football team formerly known as the Washington Redskins. At Max Kaiser is quoting at Preston Pysh, Preston Pish, not sure how to say that. Many don't realize that the fiat has already been printed. It's just been jam-stuffed into the fixed income price so hard that it's already turned 20% of the issuance negative. Once the pin of reality is pulled on that compressed spring, you'll get the final hyperbolic move. And yes, they're talking about Bitcoin here because Bitcoin relative to the dollar is going to continue to dominate news headlines. But that's only because the Federal Reserve is printing dollars nonstop, and everything is gaining in value in comparison to the dollar because we're experiencing the beginnings of hyperinflation. Apparently, the wife of El Chapo Guzman Loera was arrested for her alleged role in international drug trafficking. All I can see is Penelope Cruz saying, "He's got a kilo in the trunk." At M. Tracy says 2 Democratic members of Congress are pressuring the CEOs of the country's major TV providers to essentially purge the news networks these members don't like on the basis of the alleged danger posed by misinformation and conspiracy theories. This is why I'm doing rhY'z Anti-Corporate Newz, to provide an antidote to the corporate media absolute fascist takeover of all information. They're trying to control everything you see, hear, and even think. They're trying to do it through control of the corporate media and control of the social media, and we have to stop them, create our own content, share our own content, and stop paying any attention whatsoever to any of the corporate media or corporate social media. And ultimately, we need a P2P, a peer-to-peer, blockchain-based, uncensorable social network where we can share data and it cannot be censored by any party. That's what we really need. And another example of just how terrible these lockdowns have been for everybody, especially kids. At Ventura Report says, I spoke with Melanie Gabriel, middle school student from Washington State, who is leading the reopen school movement after seeing her friends fall into depression and attempting to commit suicide. Melanie has organized protests and rallies to bring awareness to the movement, and these teachers' unions are still saying they don't want to reopen schools. Kids are killing themselves because they miss their friends, they miss the social outlet that school is, and these teacher unions are still trying to stop reopening schools. That's got to be one of the saddest, most selfish things I've ever heard of in my entire life. Bitcoin today rocketed up to $58,000 this morning and then precipitously dropped immediately down to 50K throughout the course of the day. So I think it's going to meet hard resistance at the 50K mark. So this may be a good time to jump back into the market. But again, I never give financial advice ever to anybody for any reason. Moving over to Gab.ai, at Rod Stryker says, back before he was Dementia Joe, Biden could explain with clarity that he was arrested at the age of 21 for trespassing in the Capitol, describing a crime that is similar to those for which some participants in the January 6th Capitol riot currently face federal charges. So this guy here did exactly what everybody's so upset about on corporate media about with the January 6th thing, which, by the way, was totally a false flag psyop anyway. And here's a message you're not going to see on corporate media. It's okay to be white. Stop hating yourself, you dumb bitch. Here's a pretty epic meme for the Biden regime. For those of you who say I'm hurting the mining industry, come on, man. You know how much I love miners. And here's Creepy Pedo Joe right here. And maybe the best meme I've seen in a week. Chelsea Clinton complains her grandmother did not have access to Planned Parenthood. Yes, Chelsea, we all wish your grandmother had had access to Planned Parenthood. This is a 6'8" man of an ex-Navy, a retired Navy, 6'8" giant man with naval tattoos, pre-op, I'm sure, who is now playing for a community college girls basketball team. Every time I see this giant dude with these tiny teenage girls, it just cracks me up. I used to play basketball. There's no way any of these girls stand any kind of chance next to this 6'8" behemoth 50-year-old man. Biden regime's Human Health Services pick Rachel Levine advocates sex changes for kids. So Biden is about to install a health minister here in our country that wants children to have sex changes. Microsoft forms a coalition to combat disinformation online. Founding members are Adobe, ARM, BBC, Intel, Microsoft, and TruePic. Former Microsoft CEO and maniacal genocidal maniac Bill Gates has been a big supporter of modern moves to censor more on social media. They want to control the horizontal, they want to control the vertical, they want to control the z-axis, they want to control all of the information that you can see and hear and everything that you can post. They want to control everything that we do online. Here's a pretty awesome meme showing Press Secretary Jen Psaki called Circle Back Mountain, and it's just her holding herself. Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley asked Judge Garland today whether he viewed assaults on federal courthouses by Antifa and Black Lives Matter radicals as acts of terrorism. Judge Garland responded with a strange definition of domestic terrorism. Watch and listen.
Terrorism?
Well,
Senator, my own definition, which is about the same as the statutory definition, is the use of violence or threats of violence in an attempt to disrupt democratic processes. So an attack on a courthouse while in operation, trying to prevent judges from actually deciding cases, that plainly is domestic extremism, domestic terrorism. An attack simply on government property at night or any other kind of circumstances is a clear crime and a serious one and should be punished. I don't know enough about the facts of the example you're talking about, but that's where
This is the new Attorney General? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? In a clear-cut example of corporate racism, McDonald's executives will have bonuses cut if they hire too many white males for top positions. Race and gender in hiring are two keys to financial success for top McDonald's executives, according to the company, as it sets its course for the future. It's not racist if you're just discriminating against white males. That's not racist at all, or sexist, or ageist, or anything like that. So here's the bailout for all the blue states that did the worst during the COVID lockdown. California is going to get $41.2 billion. New York is going to get $23.3 billion. Illinois is going to get $13.2 billion. Michigan is going to get $10.1 billion. And New Jersey is going to get $9.4 billion. Bear in mind, places like Florida don't really need the bailout because they let businesses stay open and run and people live their lives. Florida has had a much better outcome on every level regarding COVID than any of the states we just mentioned. And they're not getting all this billions of taxpayer money either. And I know so many people who are actively moving to Florida right now. It's crazy. The Banana Republic Supreme Court, run by pedophile John Roberts and good friend of Jeffrey Epstein, John Roberts, threw out a whole slew of 2020 presidential election lawsuits today. It's almost as if their own neck was there in the guillotine, and so they had to stop that blade from coming down. Apparently, former Monsanto lawyer Clarence Thomas was one of the only dissenting voices on the Supreme Court, saying, "That is not a prescription for confidence. Changing the rules in the middle of the game is bad enough. Such rule changes by officials who may lack authority to do so is even worse. When those changes alter election results, they can severely damage the electoral system on which our self-governance so heavily depends." Well, Clarence, we don't live in a democracy. We don't live in a republic. We live in a corporate fascist dictatorship. We have been at least since JFK was shot in the face, if not since the institution of the Federal Reserve in 1913. I don't know where you've been. I don't know why you didn't study any history, Judge Clarence Thomas. Lynn Wood today said on Telegram, "I know many of you have been waiting on me to comment about the actions or inaction by the U.S. Supreme Court today in the 2020 election cases. I will not mince words. We, the people who seek honest elections conducted under the rule of law, lost. The enemy won. Having spoken that truth, the dissenting opinion of Justice Clarence Thomas validates and confirms that the lawsuits pursued by Sidney Powell and myself were based on legitimate issues of law. All accusations and proceedings seeking to penalize or discipline Sidney and me should be terminated, as we raised important issues in those cases recognized by Justice Thomas. I agree with his dissent. His rationale in the Pennsylvania is directly on point with my Georgia case and Sidney's cases in Michigan and Wisconsin. But this legal battle is not about Sidney and me. It is about you and your right to rely on the rule of law, especially on the bedrock principle that we must have honest and legal elections. We don't have legal and honest elections here. We haven't had legal and honest elections. Arguably, the last time we had a fair and real election in this country was right before JFK got shot in the face. Ever since then, we have not had a valid legal election in this country. Every president who's been in office has been a puppet for the deep state corporations. Every single one of them. Johnson, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, Ford, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Trump. They're all corporate puppets. They're all corporate puppets for the deep state. They always have been. And the simple fact that we've brought nobody to justice in the murder of JFK or 9/11 or any of these horrendous scourges on the American public shows how corrupt our entire system is, how the political system has been completely dominated and owned by giant corporations and not by we the people. No part of it. The Supreme Court is total garbage. There's plenty of evidence showing that Justice Scalia was murdered. Hey, we don't want to lead anybody wrong with some wild misinformation. Correction, there is no possible way Judge Scalia was murdered. Yeah, he was murdered. That's it for me today, Internet fam. I hope everybody had a great Monday getting back to work. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you're going to have a great week. If you have any suggestions for me about the show, about who I should follow on Twitter or gab.ai, or any way to make the show better, please let me know. See you tomorrow, Internet fam.